Okay. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Maxwell Ivey. Y'all all know me as Max or the Blind Blogger, and welcome to another episode of What's Your Excuse? You can find me at theblindblogger.net, and we're a little short on time today, so we're going to get right into this. I'm joined by Wade Fransson, who is the founder, owner, and driving force behind Soup Limited. That stands for Something or Other Publishing. It is an author-driven publishing model. He has an amazing story that's detailed in his book, The People of the Sign, where he shares about growing up in a home with an alcoholic parent, with being kidnapped early in his life and going to Sweden, spending the winter in a camping tent in Alaska. He's had a lot of great life experiences, and y'all can read all about that in People of the Sign. So today I'm going to talk more to Wade, and we're going to find out a little about the business and see if maybe what he's doing can help some of y'all authors out there to get yourselves published and become that person you want to be. Hi, Wade. How are you doing today?
Hey, Max. Thank you so much for the invitation to join your show. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you a little bit, and I look forward to sharing what I can about who and what I am and the company that I founded.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. And just so I don't forget to mention it, it's soupllc.com, SOOP LLC. And it's an author-driven publishing model. So you have had a very crazy life up till now. And, you know, if you could mention maybe a few points that I didn't mention in your intro there that might give people a little bit better idea as to why you have started Soup and why it should matter, you know?
Thanks. Well, I'm gonna start with a little story that I've told a few times. My life is actually kind of bizarre, very different, so much so, in fact, that when I was in my 30s and I was living in Europe and doing stuff behind the Iron Curtain, and I would meet new people, and I would have commonality with them, whatever they did, wherever they came from. If they might be from Russia, and I'm like, oh yeah, I studied Russian in Germany. What were you doing there? Well, then I was in Leningrad at the time Gorbachev was abducted. And, if they were from South Africa or anywhere in South Africa, I was in South Africa under apartheid, and I was working with a program where we were, doing integrated camps that were illegal and against the law. Oh yeah, I was in Alaska. I lived in a tent for 10 months in Alaska. Yeah, I was kidnapped as a child. And I got to the situation where I kind of viewed myself a little bit like a Forrest Gump. And if you recall Forrest Gump, in the movie, he played ping pong in China under Nixon. He invented the smiley face logo. There are all these sort of weird things that happened to Forrest Gump, and he was always in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the wrong time. And so I kind of was a little bit like a Forrest Gump. And people actually that I would meet, I had like 3 of them in the span of 6 months look at me or even tell me, you're lying. You're making this stuff up. You're a congenital liar. None of this could really have happened to somebody. And so that's when I decided I had to write it down. And the book, like my life, is kind of unique. So I didn't really want to give up creative control. So I decided to go the self-publishing route, but I didn't want to actually then self-publish because that would demean the quality of the book, and not to denigrate anyone who self-publishes, but you have a stigma. You're not actually published, you're self-published.
Well, you used to have a stigma. Let's make that clear, that the stigma has somewhat gone off of the whole self-publishing thing over the last few years. It's still not the same as traditional, but it's not like it's a dirty word anymore.
Well, and it depends on who you talk to, right? It depends on who.
That's true.
Right? So, and there are pros and cons of each model, but the point is I didn't want to self-publish. So I then decided to create my own publishing company, and I began actually publishing other authors before I published my book because I wanted it to be legitimate. But in my life, I also, at one point in time, was a management consultant working for Deloitte Consulting, one of the premier brands in the world, in their strategy and operations group. And I would advise customers, large corporations, on the business model and the strategy around building their business. So I had an understanding of how business works and how processes work and how you can redesign a process. to map to an industry. And I had also done an internet startup called GoHuman.com, where I was one of 4 co-founders. So with all these experiences, I looked at the publishing world and the disruption taking place, and I said, there's got to be a better way. So being who I am, I can't do anything the way anybody else does. I had to build it differently from the bottom up, from scratch, in a model that we call author-driven publishing, which I could go on and on about, but I'll stop here because my other weakness is I tend to go on long monologues. And I'll turn it back over to you, Max.
Well, we have that in common, as you know. From I think the first time we talked for 2 hours. It only ended because you had an appointment scheduled you couldn't get out of. So, you know, and on this show we like stories. And you know, I grew up in a carnival family. I grew up around people who half the time you weren't sure if they were telling you the truth or not. And it didn't matter. Sometimes the best stories were the ones you probably knew weren't true. You know, it's just the atmosphere I grew up in. So I like stories. I've been told I'm a pretty good storyteller myself. So the long-winded answers aren't bad unless you're up against the clock. So that's fine. And, you know, I agree with you. Sometimes the best thing to do is to take a long look at what's out there and see if there isn't a better solution, or at least I think a lot of times we get trapped into what should we do or what shouldn't we do, you know, and a lot of times that's the problem. It's I should do it this particular way. And one of my favorite sayings that I've come up with is, life ain't the Olympics. They don't award any style points, and you don't get the bonus for the degree of difficulty. So if you can find a way that works, use it. So I'm happy with what you did. And we discussed this the other day. I want to help frame this conversation so that it's fair to you, and so that it helps people really understand what we're talking about here. I am a self-published author. I've published through Amazon and CreateSpace. I had to pay for the costs of editing, formatting, submitting. All the advertising is on me. The only thing I get from Amazon is access to a search engine that has the potential of millions of people to see my book if they just happen to see it. Now, for this privilege, Amazon pays me 30%. They keep 30% of the gross. And if you have the money go to a PayPal account instead of a bank account, you pay another 5% to PayPal. I personally, in addition to publishing on Amazon, I also publish directly through to my website, because then I keep 95% of the gross, but there it's all on me and I don't have access to their search engine. If you go through a traditional publisher, as we talked about the other day, you might get 10 to 15%. They're generally not going to put the effort out there that they think you will. If they do, they're going to charge you for a lot of those services against the royalties that you have coming from your book. And those royalties are not going to be a very high percentage of the gross. So you have those two options. And now tell people about Soup LLC and what you offer. Did I frame that? Did I frame that correctly? Did I get it right before we start?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Max. And that was one of the reasons we talked for so long, is because you had an understanding of the industry that a lot of authors don't. And you know, it's easy to forget that it's as confusing as it is once you understand it, because there is a logic to it. But in the interest of author education, we created a program that would teach authors about the publishing industry and the various options before we lock them into a contract. Why? One of the you know, experiences that I had when I started writing and I got involved in some LinkedIn groups was the vitriol that exists with many authors about publishing companies. And it's a David and Goliath story. And you've always got the victimized author railing against the evil empire of the publishing company. And the reason that rings true and has some truth to it is because the publishing company is typically larger and much more successful and wealthier with lots of resources than the author. So it's an unfair relationship. And so we hope to be big and powerful, but we want to make sure that we never, ever take advantage of anybody. So we set it up right from the beginning that we will not enter into a contract with anybody until they understand a whole lot more about what they're signing. And I mean that very broadly, not just what's on the paper, but the context of that paper, what their other options really might be. Many companies out there, you know, and I'm not criticizing them, in order to be successful, they simply want to quickly get you signed up into their program. They believe in their program. They don't feel they're taking advantage of you. But they are, in a sense, taking advantage of your ignorance because you don't know if there are better options out there. We don't presume to know what the best path is for you. Our path is the best for many authors, but we will educate you about the differences along the way. So how does that work? First of all, when you publish your book idea with us, you begin to understand that today you must build a platform. You must understand about promotion before you publish your book. Unless you are somehow one of the very, very few elite lottery winners that does get that publishing contract, you've written the great American novel, you're the next Hemingway, and somehow for some reason some publisher magnanimously grants you a path to stardom. Unless you're one of 100 million people, this is not going to happen to you. You're going to have to do much of it yourself, as Max is pointing out. So you're going to have to build a platform, learn how to promote, and we will teach you that. You publish your book idea, you start marketing and promoting your book idea and gathering votes. We call it crowdsourcing your readers. So you begin collecting the readers of your book, even while you're still writing your book, even while you're still finishing your book. And along the way, every time you reach a certain threshold of 50 or 150 or 300 votes, we're giving you a self-help guide and a homework assignment on a very important topic. We're also asking you to complete it and send it in, and we'll review it and grade it and pass-fail you. And as you progress through our program, you learn what you need to learn to make an intelligent decision about the publishing contract that we offer you when you get to 2,000 votes. So you get 2,000 people that vote for your book. We offer you a publishing contract. What is that contract? It is a full service publishing contract. We pay for the editing, the proofreading, the book design, the cover design. We get the Library of Congress number. We get the ISBN number, your publication page. It sits next to any top quality book on a bookshelf with all the things right that you frankly will not get right the first time out when you try to self-publish. You just don't know what you don't know, no matter how good you are, and you don't have the money to buy the right team to work with you to get it all right. We provide all that for you at our cost. And in exchange for that, you continue to gather votes. 3,000 votes now, 4,000 votes. At 4,000 votes, we'll actually produce a galley version of your book and send it out and start the whole review process. We publish your book at 5,000 votes. Now, what is a vote? A vote in our model means somebody has given us their email address, and in exchange, they received an email that said, a vote for this book means an interest in actually buying the book when we offer it to you. If that was not your intention, let us know and we will remove your vote. And we do. So if you have 5,000 votes, that means 5,000 people said, yeah, I would be interested in voting for this book. Now, that's not entirely true because the email might have gone to their spam folder or they might have ignored it. We don't get 5,000 people buying your book just because they voted for it, but we get enough people buying your book that 5 of the last 6 books we've published have become #1 rated hot new releases on Amazon.com. And we offer you a 50% royalty, typically. To date, all of our authors have gotten that. There may be some who we would offer a lower royalty to, and there might be reasons for that. We would never offer you a higher royalty, but to date, we've offered all of our authors 50%. And the reason is we view it as a partnership. We want to get you and us on the same tug-of-war rope. Never will you tell anybody that we were some big bully Goliath that took advantage of you in your ignorance and signed you up for something, because on the internet, our brand is everything. We want people increasingly to come running to us as the best thing out there. So again, I've gone on a very long monologue. I don't know, Max, if I've answered. No,
you answered the question beautifully, and I gave you the space there because I had heard the explanation before, and I felt like that was what the time you needed to get it all out there. So again, I'm talking with Wade Fransson from Soup LLC. That's SOOP LLC.com, something or other publishing. He is a successfully published author. His book was published on through his company and a #1 bestseller in 3 different categories. Don't ask me what they were because my memory is not that good anymore. But I think one of them was religion and one of them was psychology. So Those are a couple of pretty competitive search categories on Amazon. And, you know, we're talking about publishing in general and his publishing model specifically. And I want to get back to something that you did talk about that is near and dear to my heart, and that is, I agree with you. Before an author even starts writing the first page, he or she needs to be considering building that community, that platform, that audience, so that when they're finished with the book, they have people ready to purchase it. And, you know, you talked about people getting to the 2, 3, 4, 5,000 votes, meaning that they have these people who have expressed an interest in it. Those are the kinds of things that publishers listen to. So whether you're wanting to publish with Soup or you're wanting to publish with a traditional publisher, if you could go to that publisher and say, hey, I got 5,000 people online who said they were ready to buy this book, which I'm sure is how y'all pitch these books once somebody reaches that plateau, excuse me. I'm sure that's one of the things that really lets y'all sell these books, is that you can go to a publisher if you want to, or if the author wants to. Y'all can go to the big boys and say, hey, we got thousands of people ready to buy this book. Why, you know, and so take that from there.
Yeah, so that's the timing on that one is perfect. So we had a person, and I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning her here, as you'll see in a minute, Jennifer Irwin, whose book idea was called Address the Color of the Sky. And she actually had a manuscript, and she worked our program, and she was working it hard. And, you know, I won't say she blew it out of the water, because it was a journey. It took her a while, but she did great. She amassed 2,000 votes and did all the homework assignments and got a publishing contract. Being a wheeler dealer type, she actually took our publishing contract and the fact that she had an offer in those votes, and she went and got 1 or 2 other offers from other publishers. And we said, great,
I love it.
Feel free. And but more than that, she interested some folks through some contacts in the movie rights to her book. And she actually sold movie rights to her book before the book was even published. And what's fascinating to me is she actually came back to us after all this success and said, you know what? I feel a loyalty to you guys, and I'm interested actually in publishing with you now. And she's got over 2,500 votes, and she's got a movie rights sold to her book. And I'm like, wow, this is great. So we talked to her, and, you know, she had another and after discussing everything, she still decided to publish with this other company. But she's going to be using us for marketing services. And so that's why I'm mentioning her here and her book, Address the Color of the Sky, because we're going to be helping her market that book, even though we didn't publish it, but she got her start and she shopped it around. And we love that. We are not trying to lock you in. We are all about you being successful. It's called author-driven publishing for a reason.
What was her name again? Eleanor?
Jennifer Irwin.
You'll
be hearing more about her because I'll be talking to you about getting her an interview.
All right. And I want to mention something to you that I'm hoping people will start to take advantage of. Because I have switched from Skype to Zoom, I now have the ability to play video clips or audio clips during an interview. So, like, if somebody has a trailer for a movie that they're wanting to promote when they come on my show to do an interview, if they will just make that trailer available to me, I can do the normal television show pause, insert that video, and we can give it the feel of a morning talk show type interview. So that's something I want you and anybody that's watching this to think about, because it's something I definitely want to do, not only because it will help people connect even more and and build those relationships with the people who come on my show, but also give me something that nobody else is doing. And as I'm sure you know, unique sells. So are you still there, or did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking forward to talking with Eleanor, as I'm looking forward to talking to several of your other authors. By the way, just so people will know, it's Jennifer. Oh, it's Jennifer. Jennifer. I'm getting old. I'm sorry. Jennifer, and the Address the Color of the Sky. And just so people can be looking forward to this, we're going to have a couple of authors on my show who have some great stories and great books to talk about, who went through the process. and we're going to talk to them to to find out what their stories are, to hear about their books and their other projects they got going on, and then of course we'll want to hear what they have to say about the SOUP program for author-driven publishing.
Absolutely. So you want me to mention who a couple of them might be?
Go ahead. That would be good. We go ahead and tease a little.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have the first female science fiction writer from Trinidad, Rohini Singh, and she wrote a book for young adults. It's a little bit Harry Potter-esque. It's probably a step up in terms of the age level, the reading level, and the target audience. But it's a coming-of-age story of 3 young boys, and it's called The Time Manipulator's Son. And that was also a #1 rated hot new release. Just a delightful book that integrates her native Trinidadian culture in a universe far, far away. And she has a really unique way in which that becomes very believable as to why there's a Trinidadian culture on this planet called Sisypha. And I won't spoil anything, but there's an upper and a lower world, and there's also a unique twist on time travel. And
I'm looking forward to
how that happens. Yeah, so it's really a cool little book, The Time Manipulator's Son by Rohini Singh. Another one is Kerry Azara. We're really pleased with Kerry. He also he really rocked our voting model. And #1 rated hot new release on Black Friday last year, beating out Anthony Robbins, at least for a day, in the wealth management category with Anthony Robbins' new book. So wealth management is kind of a funny one for this, but the reason we classified it in that category, it's called The Lottery Curse, and it's 3 novellas. They're not short stories. They're 3 short novels, all on the theme of lottery winners and how winning the lottery destroyed their life because, essentially they used bad wealth management. So anyway, that is another one we're really proud of because each of those stories is just amazing in its own right. And we've got a financial management expert who writes the preface to that, talking about people who long for that big win without the skills needed to actually manage it, the success if they have it. So it works on a number of levels. The Lottery Curse by Kerry Azara.
Right. Well, I think you mentioned something in there that's important for a lot of people that are bloggers, podcasters, authors. It's when you were talking about The Time Traveler's Son, that book, you mentioned how it was the author's take in putting the Caribbean theme in this time travel and alternate worlds science fiction book. And it got me to thinking how a lot of people decide not to write or not to publish because they feel like their stuff has already been done 100 times over. And I think a book like that just proves that somebody can come along and say something just a little bit different with their own individual, unique take on it and be a success with it. So I really appreciate you. That's one of the things that caught my attention while you were talking about these authors.
Yeah, two comments there. The first one being, I was an avid reader of science fiction as a child. One of my favorite books, I'm not going to say it's my very favorite because then you would have a password hint. What's this guy's favorite book? But one of my, how that goes.
I didn't even think about that.
What's your favorite movie? Yeah. So, trust me,
I got to change my security code. I got to change my security code.
My sister years ago used to send out these forums that said, I want to learn about you. They went around the internet. What's your favorite movie? Tell us what's your favorite movie. Where were you born? And I'm like, this is a fishing expedition. Everyone that's, responding to this, all your password hint stuff is all out over the internet. Anyway, so not my absolute of all time favorite book for my password hint, but Frank Herbert's Dune. I read that book 3 times. This is an amazing book. And Robert Heinlein and all those science fiction authors, Isaac Asimov. I mean, I was so into science fiction as a kid, and I kind of moved away from it later. Although it did frame some of my thinking and my creative exploration of ideas. But I've never read one that kind of has, to your point, this twist that Rohini put on it. She comes at it and she kind of took Harry Potter as her touchstone, but wrote a science fiction book with time travel in it instead. So it's unique. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm talking with Wade Fransson from Soup LLC, Something or Other Publishing, an author-driven publishing model, and that's at soopllc.com. And this is what's your excuse. Now, I don't want you to give away any trade secrets, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about choosing a category and keywords for authors or for titles. Some of the things that I don't want you to give a course in it, but maybe you can make a few comments about the right and wrong ways to pick a category or a subject title.
No, that's a great question, and I'm gonna amble into it here a minute and make one comment I forgot to make when talking about Rohini, and that is, we publish a diversity of books. Something or Other Publishing was a name I chose for a number of reasons, but the first one is every person has a story. Every story is different, and we'll take all comers. We're not a genre based. The only editorial standard we have is we will not print anything that is intended to be offensive or pornography. And that's our total discretion. If we deem it to be pornographic or intending to offend people, that's where we deem we'll just not publish that. So we'll publish, virtually anything, and so we have this wide variety of books. So how do you then search engine optimize them? And I don't believe there is a right or wrong way. The question is, what are you trying to achieve? You, for example, might really need the cash flow that is generated by selling your books on your own website. And you might have a warm market and a means whereby you have a steady flow of buyers. And you may understand and know a dirty secret here that all of your listeners should know and understand is that, generally speaking, 90x% of the time, whatever money you spend on marketing, you will lose money. I don't care what you do, how you do it. Whatever money you spend on marketing, you will not make it up in book sales. You'd better have some way to have marketing be kind of an extra bonus to something else you're already doing, or have other things to sell or other benefits from having made a few sales, but you will not make your money back dollar for dollar. So for a number of people, it might be important to sell them off their own website to maximize the economic value of every sale. So therefore, it really doesn't matter what category you pick on Amazon because you don't plan to send people to Amazon. But if you, like us, leverage the fact that we're going to get a #1 rated hot new release on Amazon, and that's kind of our ticket to say it's like a New York Times bestseller, and we're going to use that in all of our marketing materials, then it's very important to pick a category that we're actually going to hit #1 in, right? So
Right.
our particular approach to that is actually to try to be a fish swimming not upstream, but downstream, not a dead fish floating downstream, but we don't want to go and compete with everybody else. So we don't do Kindle first. We do paperback first. It also increases our brand in terms of people seeing us actually selling books for $14.95 instead of 99-cent Kindle version, or even worse, giving away your book to your entire warm market in order to try to get a ranking on Amazon. Bless your heart if that's an approach you chose, and there would be reasons to do it. But for us and our authors, it feels foolish because you're giving away your book to everybody that has actually already said, hey, I would buy that book. So we don't do that, and we don't try to compete with Kindle. We choose a print category, and we sell our book for $14.95, and we try to recoup some of the costs that we invested in making it the best quality book possible. But by careful category selection and by generating pre-order sales through this voting process, we optimize the entire process so that when you launch your book, it's going to pop on Amazon, and you get a screenshot, and nobody can ever take that away from you. You were a #1 rated hot new release on Black Friday, and you beat out Anthony Robbins. Your mom is going to cry when she hears that.
Yeah, I think it's important that you appear to understand that everybody that comes to this publishing thing has their own reasons, their own motives, their own expectations of what they want to get out of each book. I generally find that if somebody is going to give away a book for free, they're doing it because they have accepted the fact that the first book isn't going to make money, and the best they can hope for the first book is to generate an audience where the second book will make money. I've seen people that have done that. I haven't thought about your idea of going paperback first, then Kindle, but it makes a lot of sense because you can generate the book sales, you can generate the book reviews, and then when you do post it to Kindle, you've got some surge behind it to give it a push that it wouldn't, in addition to whatever else you're doing to draw attention to that release.
Well, the other thing is it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So what's important to us is when we publish you, we create a 13-month marketing plan, the first month being the pre-order month. And we're already doing that 13-month plan a month or two before it launches. So we want you to have sequential events to where we can do marketing buzz and keep you in the news and the media for a year, because the big challenge is, and again, another dirty secret, is 90% of every book, self-published or not, but especially self-published books, they sink like a rock to the bottom of the sea, never to be seen again. Now, you may get personal satisfaction out of having published that book, and you may have a few people that read it. But for me, wanting to be an overachiever and maybe being more focused on an ambitious definition of success, that was not good enough for me. I wanted so much more than that, and I want that for all of our authors. So we have to plan in advance that this is going to be a 13-month marathon. And after the print book, then we have a Kindle version and a book launch somewhere in there as well, an official book launch versus a book publication date. And then we may do an audio book after that, right? So you've got a series of fortunate events that allow you to continue to market your book with some sizzle. Marketing 101, sell the sizzle, not the steak. Your book is the steak, but you can sell the sizzle over and over again when you release various versions of it or achieve other events.
Right.
Interviews like this that you can then market on social media. Oh, my book got another great review. All of those things are important. And, go look at anyone who's successful. They didn't appear once on Letterman. I mean, you do have those who appeared once on Oprah, right? And then they got a relative success coming out of that. The kind of one-hit wonder thing. And there's nothing against that at all. But we want to increase the odds and not just look for that lottery ticket.
Right. Mitch Albom was on CBS This Morning today, and he was talking about how he had done a lot of work to market his book, Tuesdays with Morrie. He said, I thought I was going to have those 20,000 copies of the book in the trunk of my car for the next 100 years. He said, but, it was being on Oprah for 5 minutes. He said, I wasn't even part of this show. He said, she brought me on for the last few minutes. And I wasn't even allowed to promote the book. He said, I was just on the show. And the fact that she mentioned my name and people knew who the heck I was, he said, I was then able to leverage that to start making some sales. But he said, people think Tuesday with Morrie was this ridiculous overnight instant success. He's like, it was 2 years before I started making money on that book. It was 2 years. And this is a book that now is 20 years later, is sold 50-something million copies in 30-something different languages. But I agree with you. To that point, you do have to build it. I will tell you, it's something that I just thought about from my own personal experience when you mentioned publishing in print first, is with my first book, Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success. Hey, it's my show. Frederick said it's my show, so if I want to pimp my book, I can, okay? With my first book, though, I have if I showed you my Kindle dashboard and then showed you what I made from print copies, especially autographed copies, the print copies would be 3-4 times what would show up on my Kindle dashboard. I'm not going to give people the numbers, but I will tell you for a fact, and people know I'm one of the most authentic, straightforward people on the internet. So I will tell you, the print copies, especially the signed copies, and I'm not just talking about to my relatives, I'm talking about the strangers online, have far outsold the Kindle, and that was with releasing them both pretty much at the same time. So I think you might be onto something here. Well, obviously you're onto something. You're using a model that lots of people use before you when it comes to building an audience.
Well, and you know, we didn't throw everything. We didn't throw every baby out with the bathwater. I mean, the idea of, you know, a hardcover then a paperback is where I got the inspiration for that from. And you know, I'm not saying it's the be all and end all, and I'm not saying everything we do is right, and certainly not that everything we do is for everybody all the time.
Right.
It really varies depending on the circumstances, but it has worked well for us.
That's one of the things I do like about your model is from what I have heard from friends who have done the traditional publishing route, or who have done the vanity publishing route, or who have self-published. A lot of times it's presented as one option. The company you're dealing with, they have a set plan as to how they're going to do business with you, and that is the one option they have. They do not have the ability to be flexible and change based on the author's talent, quantity of work, and expectations, which is the most important thing, because as you mentioned earlier, it all comes down to what somebody sees for themselves as a measure of success, and what expectations go along with that measure of success.
We just failed one person on their homework assignment because they chose not to define what success meant for them. And we can't let you proceed in our program if you don't tell us what success is, because guaranteed later you'll tell us it was something else, you know. And there's so many sayings about that. If you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up someplace else. And we don't want to be responsible for something that's deemed a failure when you didn't tell us what success looked like.
Hey, I got a new favorite quote. My brother saw it on the internet. I don't know who started it, but I love it. It's any dog can be a guide dog if you don't care where you're going.
I love it.
So tell me, let's see now, how long has Soup been in business? And I think you said y'all have had 6 people that you've published so far.
We started in 2012. We published our first book in January 2012. That was a book of original historic research from Serbia, where war crimes that when we published that book, a couple of years later, the UN released its archives, and it turns out that the somewhat explosive accusations is too strong a word, but the somewhat explosive positions and points of view that were expressed. The author was making accusations, and we actually, one of our editorial challenges was tone it down. We toyed with calling the book Hitler's Mentor. Instead we chose Genocide Revealed, and it's about Admiral Horthy, who was considered a war hero in Hungary, and you know, who was let off in the World War II by the Allies and Russia. Russia didn't care anyway because they were worse. You know, I'm sorry, they weren't worse, but they were in some ways just as bad. You know, Stalin killing 20 million of his own people. But the Admiral Horthy committed war crimes, and that was the position. And yet this guy's a hero in Hungary. And the UN archives that were unleashed or released proved what this book said. And that came a couple of years after we published it. So that was like a huge win for us. Feel like put us on the map. It's by Alexander Velchik, called Genocide Revealed. But we've only published, we have only published a few books, and we have hundreds and hundreds of people using our model. And I talked about Jennifer Irwin, who went and a number of others have gone and published elsewhere, as they find that, you know, just continuing to gather the votes is tedious and it's not for them, and they get somebody else who offers them a publishing contract, and that's success for them. And whether or not they ended up having a #1 rated hot new release with that publisher, I can't say. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, or maybe they had other benefits. But they found our model to be tedious. We find it to be, kind of necessary if you don't have a big budget, because you can do a lot of that work yourself. You can do it for free. Our model continues to grow. And what I would say is that I had somebody criticize me on the internet, and they're like, "You're just trying to get people's email addresses." And I'm like, yeah. You got a problem with it? Why is that evil? Why is it evil that I am collecting email addresses from people who want to read books so that I can have an email list of 1 million people who say they will buy books? How is that evil, right? Wouldn't you want to publish with a publishing company that has 1 million email addresses of people who say they will buy books?
Right.
That's our David and Goliath. right? That's how we're going to compete against Amazon, is we're going to have a different supply chain of readers, you know? I'm just flabbergasted when somehow somebody thinks, oh, don't go with something or other publishing. They're just trying to get your email contacts.
Right. I'll tell you, a couple of things in there. One, I think it's interesting that y'all actually have a research department, and you struggled with whether or not you could publish that book, what title to choose, and how much to allow the author to, or to encourage the author to include or not include, so that Soup or the author or both wouldn't end up in legal trouble, which is very, 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 very expensive if you get on the wrong side of the wrong people. And heck, when it comes to war crimes, it can be dangerous to your personal safety if you're on the wrong side of some of those people. So I'm impressed that y'all have a research department. That's one thing. The other thing is, when it comes to promoting a book, the one thing most everybody agrees on the internet now is that the most valuable asset you have is your mailing list. So to deal with a company that's wanting to build a huge mailing list is a good thing. It's an important asset to your company and to potential clients. I'm not saying that because I'm endorsing his company or that I think y'all should all hire him or anything. It's just I've been through this self-publishing thing. I'm fixing to do it again in a few months, and I understand a lot of the different arguments and the different information that's out there. And so the most valuable thing you have as an author is your platform, whether that's being a famous public speaker, having a radio show, having a TV show, having a print magazine, whatever you do to generate the audience. But this guy here, he's accumulating email addresses. And the one thing you didn't mention, Wade, is y'all are also accumulating Facebook groups and Facebook connections. And since I did want you to tell people about what you do, tell them how many Facebook groups and how many people on Twitter and stuff like that y'all have access to for people who make it through the process to the point of publishing.
Yeah, so we've started through online marketing, as you can imagine, crowdsourcing readers. How do you do that? How do you create a model where an individual author who may not have any marketing experience and who may, you know, this is not a criticism of any author, but, you know, just like IT folks, and I work in the IT field, did an internet startup, can be awkward in their interactions with other people, and authors, you know, might be a little reclusive. You know, how do you help and empower an author to go out and get, you know, thousands of people to vote for their book? So we had to figure out how to make the online marketplaces work. And I was really dismissive of Twitter for the first 2 years. I'm like, I didn't get Twitter. I still kind of don't get Twitter, but I know how to use I know how to use Twitter now. And we have over 1 million followers on Twitter across a number of controlled accounts. And we help people build Twitter accounts. And we're really big on Twitter. I've had people say, wow, you guys have blown up on Twitter. And I don't want to go off on a tangent here and talk about why that is and what it is and what it's not. Let me just say that we have over 1 million followers on Twitter. And in Facebook, we work mostly with groups that we don't at all control. Facebook is a different medium. There, we regularly post authors in groups that have over 1 million readers on Facebook. So this is an important other point. When I said that Jennifer Irwin, Dress the Color of the Sky, wants to use us for marketing, that's why. And we have marketing packages that are available to people who you know, just want to use us to market, whether you've published or self-published. We also have a marketplace of services and authors where you can list your book with us in our marketplace. You can post it and people can find it there, and you can list your services if you're an editor, a proofreader, a publisher, because many of the people that don't end up publishing with us, they're looking to hire freelancers to do the thing or things that they can't or don't want to do for themselves. So we're trying to become a destination on the internet. And so we can afford to lose a little money on your book by marketing it for you, because we're building an online marketplace which will have additional revenue streams other than just book sales. And again, some people will shrink back in horror. Oh, here's an evil businessman who talks about generating revenue streams. The good news for you as an author is, don't you want to publish with a company that's financially successful and has the means necessary and isn't just asking you to pay for it all, vanity publishing style? So that's why we've set up the business model that way, so that we have revenue streams that are conducive to the publishing concept that we're deploying on the internet. And we do want to be big. We used to think we were competing against Goodreads. Of course, then they were acquired by Amazon, right? So Amazon's the 16,000 million pound gorilla. And in our David and Goliath story, eventually we're going to want to compete against Amazon and provide an alternate universe than the Amazon one. But for now, yeah, we piggyback. We try to be symbiotic with Amazon. We use Amazon heavily because we want to be a #1 rated hot new release on Amazon. We've looked at doing more with Barnes and Nobles. We're on Barnes and Nobles too. And by the way, we have print on demand on 6 continents and delivery through every known internet outlet and any real world outlet. Our books are purchased all over the world for our authors. That's a whole nother Oprah.
Okay, well, look, I know that you have a very tight schedule. We're getting to the bottom of the hour here. I would like to mention this. I told y'all before that I'm not endorsing soup, that I'm not telling everybody to go out and use it, but I will say this much. As part of having Wade on my show, I told him that I'm going to submit the idea for my next book, and I'm going to work through the process and do the homework assignments and get the votes, and I'm going to let y'all know what I think about the whole process. Plus, we are going to have at least one, if not two, of your authors on the show in the weeks to come, so that they can, like I say, share their story, promote their book, and tell people about soup if you know what they thought of it, maybe they think there's some things you could do better, maybe there's things that they heard about from other authors with traditional publishers that are nightmare worse. We'll find out. The other thing is Wade has generously agreed to let me put a listing for my online media services in his marketplace. So, you know, I'm going to try it out. I'm really impressed with everything that I've read and heard, and I've had some long conversations with you, Wade. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. And I'm one of these people, I'm authentic. Everything is out there where people can see it. So I actually am going to try the model. And if it works, I will tell people from now on it worked. If it didn't work, I'll be fair, you know. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how this series of talks between me and you and some of your authors ends up. I think it's going to be a great collection of shows when we're through with it. And before I finish, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Let me just add. Are we still on?
Yeah, we're still recording.
Okay, let me just add one more thing, and that is that we have both a free and a premium track. So, you know, everything I've talked about is essentially available for free. But for those of you who are really serious and want to progress quickly and want maximum hands-on help from our, you know, stable of experts, we have a premium track. So just wanted to make sure that people are aware that there's a free and a premium model, and we don't need to go into cost. The premium is relatively inexpensive, $25 a month and $200 a year. And you know, for Max's listeners, you know, offer a 50% discount to anybody who wants to sign up for that. Just tell me you heard it from Max, Wade at soupllc.com, or contact us through the website, and we'll get you hooked up with what we have to offer. It's not for everybody, but you know, it's a different version out there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that generous offer to my viewers and listeners, and I will definitely remind them to mention that they heard you on What's Your Excuse or on Max's show. Since I know we both get a lot of emails, maybe they should just use my name because that'll probably click better in your mind. But tell them to mention the show, and they can get half off of the monthly subscription to the paid version. But I'm glad that you did remember there at the end to mention that you do also have a free track that's a free option for people who have, as I like to say, have more passion and talent, more hustle and muscle than cash or credit. So
awesome. And you know, it's all about building lots of people. The more, the merrier.
Exactly. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm looking forward to this whole journey that it seems like now you are a part of, and I hope you have a great week.
My pleasure, Max. Thank you so much for having me.
I enjoyed it, and let's get those authors scheduled soon. I can't wait to talk to them as well. I've had a great time with you, and I really have enjoyed our talks. I'm looking forward to talking to you again, whether it's whether it's online or just whenever you have a minute.
Perfect. Looking forward to it too.
All right. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye. Okay, I'm back, and I think we had a great conversation with Wade from Soup. And I hope that y'all don't think that I did this as a commercial or an endorsement. I mean, the one thing I think I'm known for is for being honest and authentic and straightforward. And what I learned from Wade today is a lot of things that I already knew, that even if you have a great book, even if you are confident in your ability as a writer, an author, an editor, even if you believe you can, that you've done this, you've done all the work, the marketing side of it is a whole nother animal. And most of us either don't have the time, the inclination, or the talent for it. And so it's best if you ask for help. I mean, you've probably heard me say this before. If you don't ask, they can't say yes. And the other one I use a lot is, if you don't ask for help, you rob the other person of the joy that comes from helping another person. Now, sometimes that help comes with a fee, with a invoice, but sometimes it's free, sometimes it's at a discount. But the point is that the stuff we're good at, we do that. The stuff we're not good at, we need to ask somebody for help. And he has a different approach to this than Amazon or than a traditional publishing company. He even has a different approach from it than I have used, because I use a combination of Amazon and direct sales from my website and direct sales from my messenger bag. So it depends a lot on what you're looking for success. We mentioned a first book being free, and some people will give away their first book for free as part of generating email signups or just to get an audience ready for the second book. That's pretty common, actually, among people that are writing a series of books or a trilogy. In my book, Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, I mentioned in there, you have to start with determining what success looks like for you. When I wrote my first book, my level of success was just getting the dang thing published, and I did that. With my next book about my Amtrak experience, I really want that New York Times bestseller. I want that Amazon #1. I want the people to buy this book and tell their friends to buy this book. What happened? What not? I don't know. I know I wrote a great book. I know I work with a hell of an editor, Lorraine Regularly at wordingwell.com. And I know I've got a good, solid community of people who will help. So we'll see. I did mention that I am going to try using his system just so I can see how it works. I want to find out what other people are saying about it, which is why I'm going to have a couple of authors on here to talk about their experience. And I'm going to try really hard to get the lady, Jennifer, that he mentioned, who went through part of the process and then decided to do it on her own, because I think that's a good example. And plus, as a show host, you never turn down opportunities for guests, because that's one of the things that you are always looking for, is the next good quality person who can come on and share a good story with your audience and have a good conversation like I think we did just now between me and Wade. So I was Wade Fransson from Soup LLC, SOOPLLC.com. I am Max Ivey, the blind blogger at theblindblogger.net. That's theblindblogger.net. On Twitter, I'm at Maxwell Ivey, and I appreciate all the new people who have followed me. On YouTube, it's youtube.com/Maxwell Ivey. I mentioned that because that's where you find these videos. That's where you also find videos of me singing and some more inspirational stuff that I've recorded in the past and will record again in the future. So thank you for sharing some time with me. I know you have busy lives and you don't have a lot of time to spend on stuff like me. I appreciate you sharing a few minutes of your time with me. I look forward to talking to you again. So until next time, if Max Ivey can do it, if Wade Fransson can do it, if Lorraine Regularly can do it, if some of the people that I've had on this show, like Ryan Badolf or Dave Steele, if they can do it, then what is your excuse? Until next time, thank you, God bless you, and take care. This is Max.